Hello, welcome to the Media Club. I'm your host, Matt Deegan. In the club today are journalists becoming more like influencers. Alex Hudson, editor-in-chief of Everything Popular is Wrong, takes a trip into Substack to investigate. Also on the pod, Lachlan wins the succession battle. TV critic and media writer Scott Bryan tells us who are the real winners and losers. All that plus why a streamer's so reluctant to fund an anti-bullying body. Observer staff face up to their new reality, and in the media quiz, our guests take part in a branding exercise. That's all coming up in this edition of the Media Club. Come on in. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Alex, former editor of Newsweek International, Metro deputy editor, and the man that brought social media to Question Time. Your time will come to atone for those sins. Who would you like to add to the club?
I would like to add Ellen Scott, who's the digital editor of Stylist magazine, whose book Working on Purpose has just come out. It's all about how working actually should make you healthier, not more unhappy. And she has spent the last months and years building out her newsletters, building out her audio on it. She has spent so long on this book, and she had a launch party last week, and it was just a triumphant, beautiful, wonderful thing.
So should work make you happy? Are you on board?
It should. It definitely should. You know, as we're going to come on later, like working culture and how you actually have friendly relationships and a healthy work-life balance is a whole different thing. But it should, if you're working on somewhere with purpose, then it should make you happier.
Scott, does work make you happy?
I think I chose a very geeky thing because I'm a geek, so I think it makes me happy.
And of course, you did a busy thing this week. You were at the NTAs.
Yeah, the NTAs, the National TV Awards. It's a bit like being back at school when there's like a popularity contest about who's going to be head boy and head girl. The winning show's not necessarily the best one because, you know, there could be a show, for example, like The Traitors, which is huge and critically acclaimed. But then I think it did get beaten by I'm a Celebrity. And it's like the 15th time that show's won that award. And it's just a little bit, I think it's because it skews naturally more towards ITV. I think it skews naturally more towards fandoms. And of course, you do get a show that does align into something that is, you know, really impactful, will be remembered, will be loved, like Adolescence, you know, for example, with Owen Cooper and the show winning Best New Drama. But I mean, a lot of the time, it is just, you know, a bit of a shrug. And I think people forget who won the following year, really.
I want to hear more gossip on the NTAs later. You're on the red carpet for BBC News. But before we get there, who would you like to add to our club membership this week?
So I haven't been on for a while, and I've thought about what I've really enjoyed during the summer, and it's mostly been with my dad. It's been watching ITV's coverage of the Tour de France and the cycling team, and it's been second to none. And of course, you know, what's happened is twofold, really. It's coming to the end because ITV have decided not to sort of keep not to renew a contract, or, you know, there's been reports that it's gone to Warner Brothers Discovery exclusively. And it sort of brought an end to sort of free-to-air cycling, which has pretty much existed right to, I think, Channel 4 in the 90s has come to an end now. And now it's behind a £32 a month paywall, which I think is bad for cycling, it's bad for fans, it's bad for people getting into the sport. But it's also an end of an era because ITV4's coverage was absolutely superb. And it was done not with a great budget, not with a massive budget either, but a very small dedicated team. It's just sad that's wound down now.
I think it's a big question for lots of sports about, you know, taking the money and taking themselves off free-to-air television. You know, where do the next fans of those sports come from? And the longer you're away from free-to-air or making your sport more accessible, the less chance you've got to grow those fans of tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think another question is about whether the sort of the ring-fence sports that we have that have to be free-to-air are sort of suitable for this day and age now. I sort of think that I mean, if you look at it, the Olympics are ring fenced. You know, a lot of football is ring fenced, but I think for, you know, other sports, if they're not necessarily within those categories, you know, sort of was it A, B, or C, then they can fall by the wayside. But they still have huge followings. It's just the fact that they can end up being on a pay streamer, and that's what's happened with cycling.
Okay, on to the media headlines. And the saga may be over, but the dynasty continues. Alex, Rupert Murdoch has got his way. Remind us of the prize.
Well, the prize is News Corp.
Yes.
And the prize is the future of right-wing thought across the English language Western media.
It's the most important thing to think about.
Well, it's the most important thing to Rupert. So Lachlan was officially named the successor, and his siblings, so Prue, Liz and James, receive around $1.1 billion each. And they're currently part of the original family trust, and it's dissolved, and essentially the younger children start to benefit. So that's, Lachlan is the older one who's now in charge, Grace and Chloe.
So these are the Wendy Deng children.
Rupert has so many children and so many wives.
Yeah.
It's difficult to keep up. But I think the quote from Rupert was that his company was the protector of the conservative voice in the English-speaking world, and that Lachlan was of that mindset and was very much going to keeping it in the family, obviously, but the voice that he has and the opinions that he has, despite his absolute vehement belief in free speech, he is of the right of the Murdoch family.
And also he's to the right of Rupert. I mean, I think Rupert is, I've always thought him as like an anti-establishment, profit-focused person rather than being particularly ideological, but Lachlan, it seems, is a little more in the sort of traditional American right-wing mould.
I think we're yet to see it as of him as leader. So in a 2022 speech at the launch of Centre for Australian Way, he said, "As Australians, we are free to have our own opinions, free to be Labour or Liberal, we are free to be left, and we are free to be right, we are free to disagree, we are free to choose what we read and what we watch." And of course, that is traditional libertarian, but it's not ideological. It's more just a view of, we are a media company, we intend to be free. And I think with him, now that whole legal saga is over, now we will get to find out exactly what he thinks and whether or not actually profit is the winner of all of this in the end.
Yeah, Scott, which ending of Succession is this one?
It's a good question, isn't it? I mean, I think it's an ending that I think was the most likely one, really. I mean, certainly over the course of the last few years, I just find it sort of strange about how it's, not too dissimilar, I think, to what happened in Succession, really. I mean, it ended up with, I don't want to say what happened because people who might have actually
spoilers, if you haven't seen it, it's unlucky.
I know, it's a nightmare.
Tom wins, that's it. I'll spoil it. Tom wins.
Now you're going to have the grief, aren't you? I mean, I think sort of a big question is that what will that mean for the media titles, when Rupert does go? Because if you look at the companies that he does have, I mean, I think for Times, is obviously profit making at the moment. I think they've got the digital sort of structure quite right, in the fact that it's all up behind a paywall with a print product, but the amount of people who bundle their subscriptions have made it sustainable and profitable. But I mean, it's clear that the Sun, has been losing significant amount of money for quite some time. It's still receiving millions of readers online, but certainly does not have any of as much of the political weight that it used to have, back when circulation was in the millions. And for digital properties, I mean, there is Tubi, which is this sort of free online sort of streaming service, which has been doing quite well, particularly in America. But I think if I was in charge, I'd be concerned about whether there is enough media portfolios, enough media titles that are going to be sort of pointing towards the future rather than maybe sort of linking too much to the past.
Alex, what does it mean for somebody who works at The Sun or The Times or Talk Radio? Is a Lachlan win good for you or good for that employee? Good
I
for
imagine
UK titles?
Very little will change straight away. So Lachlan has been very much of the free speech. So all of the things that happened with Fox in the US, he was very much on the side of the reporter, on the side of the presenter, and they may say whatever they want to say, and I will defend them even if I don't agree with them. And ultimately, it's not really about profit in the whole News Corp thing, it's about influence. And so particularly not in the US and the UK, if you look at the US model, it's so much on Realtor.com. So much of News Corp revenue relies on just the monster that's become and all of the affiliate revenue that comes with the sales. And take Tubi, for example, now they bought it for $440 million, and now it's estimated to be worth around $2 billion. So that's already, I was reading a sort of finance report about actually if it's a buy or if it's a sell, and people think it's relatively future-proof because of the Realtor work. But when it comes to the British media and the US media, it's not that big a bit of a pie when it comes to money. It's just the influence, and how Lachlan chooses to use that influence will be key. But I can't see, given the recent work in News Corp's underbelly, that changing too much.
And obviously the one big media property that still does well for them is obviously Fox News. I mean, there's sort of slight liberal wet dream that the Murdoch children win and that they somehow drag that media title into the centre. I mean, that was
You've
never
been watching Succession.
That was never really going to happen, was it? That was never really going to happen.
It was never going to happen. But then Fox has to reassess what it's doing. So how much money does it make from advertising? What's the viewership of cable news in general? That's shrinking. What is its digital property? How does it build a subscription model out of that? And what is the real future of what Fox does? And to Scott's point around how it's future-proofing itself, Fox is a real big question mark, and there isn't a clear answer to that yet. If you look at its stars and look at how they could siphon off into different subscription models, Fox needs to do something. I just don't think anyone has an answer for what that something is yet.
And what are the kids going to do with $1 billion each to add already to their similar amount of money I think they got the first time when 20th Century was sold?
Carly Kloss, when she married a billionaire, she just bought ID magazine or Dazed magazine, wasn't it? So they're not going to set up, well, they might do. They might set up rival media empires. I don't think they are. I think they're just going to go off and Bezos it and buy a nice yacht. Yeah,
I mean, Scott, in Succession, that the kids talk about launching their own media product to compete with their father. There's not going to be another news network being set up by the three of them, is there?
Spoilers, Matt. Spoilers. You're just dropping spoilers all over the place. I can't respond to that because that's even revealing even more spoilers for what happens.
Oh, no fun. No fun. I imagine they are going off to the island rather than off to the CMS.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. A big Labour reshuffle this week. And yes, contrary to political reporting, Lisa Nandy stays as Culture Secretary. And this week she lay into streamers and super indies for not supporting a new anti-bullying watchdog. Scott, this is the Creative Industries Independent Standards Authority. I think we're saying CSIR, but who knows? Anyway,
it's going to be called Scissor, isn't it? I just sort of think that there's... Yeah, well, I just think it's the way it sort of sounds, even though that hasn't been spelt it in that way. That's how I'm going to be calling it from now on.
Well, there might need to be cuts before it started. What did Lisa Nandy say?
Well, I mean, she said that she's upset or appalled to hear that production companies, including Banijay, who of course were at the heart of the recent MasterChef sort of story in regards to Greg Wallace and John Turode, have committed to signing up to Scissor, or at least in Banijay's case had to, but have not yet provided a single penny of funding. I mean, Banijay have sort of said on their part that they are committed to the independent body, and I think, essentially highlighting that they're in its development stage. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't heard too much, but before you sent over these stories, that much about Scissor itself. It hasn't really been that much of a talking point within the industry. I think there is certainly a need for it, because one thing that I've been doing over the course of this summer, so I had a feature in broadcast where I spoke to presenters about their experiences of working within the industry. And quite a few of them were highlighting the fact that they need to have some sort of, I mean, there's no sort of universally agreed approach, but some sort of feedback model so that people can call out bad behaviour and it wouldn't have any negative effect on their career. Be that through maybe a feedback form that they would submit at the end of a production that would be anonymised, or a sort of clear structure that they have somebody to report to should things go wrong. So I think an independent body such as this does sort of indicate, I think, where some people in the industry are feeling. I think it's the fact that at the moment there doesn't seem to be an agreed approach of who funds it, how is it managed, how is it regulated. Particularly, I think it cuts into the big issue that the TV industry is entirely or mostly freelance based anyway. So it's incredibly hard to have a rigorous sort of program in place if you're going from job to job to job, and sort of shows maybe only get made in a few weeks or in a few months.
Alex, I mean, Lisa Nandy is quite the bomb thrower. She sort of annoyed everybody, and does that mean she's doing a great job or a terrible job?
Is that a bomb? Like it's a regulatory body without any powers, without any ability to fine, without any ability to really do anything, with a remit that's meant to be across film and TV and culture, whatever that means, and art. And I think heritage was mentioned at some point in this document from January. And so it's setting up it's a good press release. But when it comes to actually, if you look at what the FCA is doing, so FCA is going to roll out similar things in the finance industry.
There's Financial Conduct.
Financial Conduct Authority. In 2026, we'll have more powers around non-financial things, particularly around bullying and harassment and workplace safety, and that can fine millions of dollars and millions of pounds. This is a softer version. It's a very broad version, and it doesn't quite know what it wants to do in practice. Does everyone want to stop bullying and harassment in a creative workplace? Absolutely. Does it have to be across so many different industries for it to get any buy-in? And can you make an international company subscribe to a British-only bit of policy? Probably not. And it's interesting that she's calling these companies out, but I don't know what changes when it comes to that. And I think as she works through her ministerial role, and as that becomes even more discussed than it already is about whether or not she remains in role, you can see why she's trying to push the envelope and make sure she is in the headlines as much as possible.
I mean, everybody thought that she would disappear from that role. Someone was saying that she's sort of been punished by being kept in it during the reshuffle. I think a lot of media companies that I've heard were disappointed that she's still there.
I mean, I think she has been outspoken. I mean, I think it's worthwhile pointing out that the fact that she's remaining in the position, I mean, we know who she is, because the amount of times that there's been a change in rotation of the person who ends up having this role has been ridiculous. I think there's, under the Conservatives, it was about a new person every 6 months. So at least there is some consistency. I think a challenge is that she has been outspoken where some people feel that she shouldn't be sort of, as a representative of government, speaking out as much as she is on certain issues. I think so. Peter Kosminski, of course, behind Wolf Hall, very frustrated at how much, in his view, she's been sort of talking about the BBC in regards to all of the scandals that's been involved in during the summer, saying it shouldn't be her place to. But I guess, really, I think whatever she says, whatever she does, I always have a great deal of interest, because that's how I sort of see how the government thinks of the BBC. And as the BBC comes to charter renewal, I mean, really any hints or really indicates, I think, for the next 10 years of public service broadcasting within the UK. And I think that the surprise I found is when she started in the role, she was posing with Hackerty Dog, the new Blue Peter presenter and puppet up in the media, up in Salford. I think everyone saw it would be rose tinted, and then pretty much every other interview, or nearly every other interview that I've seen since, has been negative about the BBC, which I think has been quite a surprise.
Hacker, when he, in the press release, when he was announced as the new Blue Peter presenter, he said he was the only Blue Peter presenter that didn't blink, which I thought was a good line. Well done, Hacker. Okay, just before the break, Sunday paper The Observer has started to make changes to the print edition of the newspaper and its production workflow as it looks to spread its output across the week. Alex, The Observer was taken over by Tortoise in April, but it's making some changes about freelancers and casual staff. What have they sort of been saying?
So it made a promise that it would keep on frontline freelancers for 12 months. But it didn't talk about the production staff. They didn't talk about the sort of backroom staff or the other sort of, and within that they have reduced heavily the number of weekend staff members. I think it's from 15-ish to 3, because they would like to spread the workload out across the week, because the internet is real.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Yeah. The internet is a thing that requires...
And my pagination of the newspaper is down.
I think that's because it's August. So
okay,
you would expect...
Less ads, less stuff.
No news happens in August. So I think that will end up going up again. Although people are still reading it. So the Observer don't publish how many people are buying the physical product. They removed themselves when they were part of The Guardian in 2021. So the last numbers were 135,000, give or take, just over. Press Gazette estimates that will be around 75,000 now if they were in keeping with the rest of the industry. Tortoise and Observer have said it's gone up slightly since they've taken over 5 months ago. But it's going to be the case of how many people are reading that paper really, and them working out how they can create a 24/7 news operation as a new company makes so much sense. And the fact that it's taken 5 months, I think, is testament to their HR policies and their people management, and trying to make sure that they're keeping people on side.
I mean, the Guardian is a well-resourced operation, and they want to do things in a different way.
So I think if you're going to come in and buy such a heritage brand as The Observer, you are obviously financially backed. I turned all my ad blockers off when I was researching it, and I still can't find an ad anywhere. You can sign up, and there's 3 newsletters, but you can't. There's no way to become a member necessarily, and even the puzzle newsletter is coming soon. So they are right at the start of this journey, and you can't expect them to have all the answers in 5 months. But it has to be well resourced. There has to be a lot of money behind it because you bought the name. and you are investing in 70 journalists, at least they took over. So there is a lot of money behind this. But to make it succeed, you have to have a subscription model. You have to have a loyal audience, and their audience is still very heavy search. And they don't have that habit yet. And so the question of whether or not Observer is successful or not is whether or not people were loyal to the Observer and just happened to get it through the Guardian, or if people were loyal to the Guardian and just happened to experience the Observer. So I'm still amazed when I first heard that the Saturday papers always sell better than the Sunday papers in recent times. So they've bought something less popular than the Saturday Guardian. What does that mean for a digital brand? They're trying to figure it out, but they don't have that long until they need to show at least digital growth. They're currently on about 2.1 million visits a year, which for context is around 4% of what the independents do.
I've been impressed by what they've done so far, because the paper, I think, has been reinvigorated. I mean, they have broken some scoops over the summer. You know, the Salt Path was an absolutely huge story, and they've picked it up. And I can now sort of see it making sense in regards to what Tortoises is trying to do, sort of build a one package that has all of their investigative podcasts, do a live event, and have a paper as well. And I think the paper, you can certainly sense that there's now a lot more life and in it. I think using it kind of a bit more as a magazine and a resource. I think obviously as rightly pointed out, it's trying to make sure it's the balance right in terms of having people to pay for it, because right now everything is free on their website. It's trying to one day pull up the drawbridge and be like, oh hang on, you're now going to have to pay for it. Oh hang on. Everything that was before, was it like April or even a bit earlier, maybe March or February, actually you can still read that for free on The Guardian. I think that's the challenge they've got ahead of them, really.
Okay, when we return, are journalists now more influencers than hacks? We watch Scott's face contort as Alex sets out his stall. We'll see you in a sec. Of course, to see the look on Scott's face requires the finest studio capabilities available in London. Podshop is the ideal space for recording content that stands out from the crowd, including patching in our club members remotely at the drop of a hat. So you can focus on the talking and leave the rest to the experts. And for a limited time, you can get 25% off your first booking at Podshop Studios, where we record our show. Just use the code Media Club when booking online at podshoponline.co.uk. Don't miss out. Head to their studio page now and take your podcast to the next level.
Hello Media Club listeners, Patrick here from Podcast Discovery, the podcast marketing company, where this week we've been thinking about health. We've considered the history of vaccination because of Chalk and Blade's Our Big Shot, climate health while listening to Series 3 of the Wellcome Trust's When Science Finds a Way, not to mention sexual and mental health thanks to the astonishingly named How to Get Wet When You're Dry. These are just 3 of the projects we've helped our lovely clients with already this September. Want to join them? Get in touch at podcastdiscovery.com. That's podcastdiscovery.com.
Welcome back. Here's some stories we've been discussing in the club this week. Greg Wallace, our friend, has begun legal action against the BBC and BBC Studios, according to court records seen by The Guardian. The purpose appears to release internal reports about the former MasterChef presenter, which the corporation has previously refused to hand over. So this is very much the first part of what's going to be a long, drawn-out dismissal. Channel 4 has a new chair, and it's Jeff Cooper. Yes, the Jeff Cooper, former chair of AO Group and Travis Perkins, or as somebody referred to him, a fridge magnet, which I thought was very good. He succeeds Dawn Airy. Top of the inbox will be finding a new CEO. And one innovative company has promised to make 3,000 new weekly podcast episodes, each one costing just $1 to make. That's according to The Hollywood Reporter. The company's called Inception Point AI, which makes a tidy profit on each episode with just 20 people listening to it. Links to all of our stories available on our weekly Substack. Sign up now at themediaclub.com, where you'll find our new briefed newsletter, where we round up what every other media podcast is talking about. And we're nice about them as well. So go sign up. It's free. You've been sending me ones that we should add. So I've done that, and there'll be a new edition on Monday morning. Just sign up at themediaclub.com. Scott and Alex still with me. Scott, it's an ex-Wondery chief behind this. She's told The Hollywood Reporter, I think that people who still refer to AI-generated content as AI slop are probably lazy Luddites. Do you agree?
I mean, I don't know who on earth would ever listen to any of this content. I think that's the baffling thing about this, because I think these days people want analysis, insights, personal reflections, something that is specifically based on an individual that they respect and admire and that they follow and that they maybe pay for through Substack, through whatever. This is what I don't understand, is why there is this mentality of going completely the other way and make it as complete, all from the arse end of the internet and just shove it together. I just don't get it.
I mean, Alex, this is the sort of audio equivalent of those kind of content farms with like 900 AdSense units on, isn't it?
In your post, you said it would be over in a month, and I thought that was wildly optimistic.
Yeah, so I wrote a little piece on my Substack about it. I said that I thought like the ad networks would just go, please take us off this stuff.
I don't think it'll go that quick.
Okay.
Because if you think half the internet is now AI slop, as it is so, and what you will see is you'll see the algorithm get better and better and better. I think the thing with this, I was reading through the Hollywood Reporter piece, and they were talking about how there's still a human in the design phase or in the iteration phase, and they're the ones doing the prompting. Remove the humans; they're the ones slowing the process down. And if you want to know the weather forecast, if you want to know the pollen count, if you want to know what the traffic is like somewhere, I think calling it a podcast is slightly different from an audio snippet. So if they're doing 5-minute audio snippets, to Scott's point, right? You're not going to sit there and listen to a half-an-hour person. You're not going to develop a friendship with these people, although maybe they will.
But that's what that's what they're seemingly trying to do, rather than concentrate on the regular stuff. I listened to one about knitting, and it's just badly prompted. No one clearly took a look at it. If you read the post, I had a go at creating a 30-minute podcast episode about a person, and I spent about 10 minutes like chatting with I think I was using ChatGPT for this one, and I got it pretty good. I got it to a pretty good space. Now me in that process make it unprofitable?
Probably, but there will be success stories. So there are already the AI influencers who are doing this sort of automated video, and I know they were talking in this piece very much about they're being very open about the fact it's AI, and anything they're pushing to social is being, hello, I am an AI avatar. But you can see it getting a little bit blurry. People are already developing friendships. The loneliness epidemic is real. People are going to get more and more closer. We're already in the uncanny valley, but as we get closer to real life, you can see people developing relationships with these people. If you look at how the Substack communities, people are hiring automated bots to do their replies for some of those comments. It's not that big a jump. I'm not advocating for it. I still believe, there is a huge potential of human created content, but unless your podcast is brilliant, this won't do a much worse job, and you can do it on the cheap, and you own all the IP. So the Gary Lineker problem of I can leave the BBC now because I'm bigger than them. Actually, I own the image, I own this person, I own this person's name. They're never going to leave me until AI becomes sentient and takes over us all.
And just deletes all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott, is this a bit, are they ending or trying to aim for a world of sort of like Japanese idols where it doesn't kind of matter that it's real? We had people that were annoyed that ChatGPT sort of changed the model and that their friends disappeared. Are we being mean about this AI slop, and it's just the start of a brave new world?
I just sort of find that there is so much buzz about AI, and I honestly think in about 5 years, it will turn into something. It will change our lives in some way, but we're still figuring out how it does and how it will. And I think a lot of what is the hype at the moment will actually be stuff that people have ended up using. I think the only way it's influenced my life is essentially me asking ChatGPT the odd question that I could have actually Googled, and that's really been it so far. And I can only speak for myself generally, but I think in the same way where a few years ago the whole hype was everyone's going to have a device in their kitchen that you can just yell Google or Amazon. Yes, some people have those devices, but that's all gone because it's on to the next thing. And I think there's so much excitement about having AI in absolutely everything. And yet, so far, there's nothing that seems to have really changed too much.
Well, let's talk kind of influencers, journalists, because it kind of is connected to this as well. What's the role of humans in this? What's the job of people as content creators, as AI kind of comes in to probably cover off some things like that factual content you talked about earlier. But tell us about something that piqued your interest this week.
So Jeremiah Johnson of Infinite Scroll has been battling it out with journalists influencer, web culture aficionado Taylor Lorenz about what journalism means anymore and who's winning. So Lorenz,
So good, like old-fashioned online spat.
online, well, yeah, probably. If you don't know Lorenz's work, so she's become the lightning rod for the American right, the journalism establishment, and the sort of social media chattering classes. She most recently was at Washington Post, but has also written for New York Times, and she is very online. So I'm going to quote Johnson quickly in full that she's posted 433 times in the last week on X, posted 4 YouTube videos, 2 blog posts, a wide article, appeared on a guest on a podcast, produced episodes of her own podcast, dozens of times on Instagram, YouTube Shorts. And so he worked it out. It's a post every 8 minutes for 17 hours straight for 7 days a week. So she is very online. And the post goes on to sort of say, is she a journalist? Is she an influencer? And what's the difference? And in Jeremiah's view, actually, she's an influencer now, because you can't produce that much content and stick to the facts and stick to keeping yourself out of the story, because the model doesn't allow you to be out of the story now. If you are a front-facing journalist, you have to be part of the story.
I mean, she needs attention for her work, or for her existence.
Do you need attention to the story, or do you need attention to you? And then you get into this fight about what a journalist is, what an influencer is. Are you selling a product, or are you just telling a story?
Well, is her product subs, paid for subs to
Yes.
the feed?
Yes. So it's complicated. And my version of it, a journalist is someone who cares about facts, and someone who cares about the rigor of right to reply, and cares about, have you got both sides of the story? Are you being fair? Are you being accurate? And that is a mush in the middle. So you've got, have you heard of a creator called Zoe Bread?
No.
If you haven't, you should.
Okay.
She makes T-shirts, essentially. That's her bulk of a model. But she is on a long-term, 18 months battle with Manchester Council about parking meters and around all of these illegal parking. And she's done so many right to replies. And she is now rightly getting her place online as being this brilliant, brilliant creator. And she's doing better journalism than so much of the local media. Is that journalism? Is that influencing? What's the difference? Is it a content creator? Is that a third thing? Or, YouTuber Johnny Harris, Amelia de Meldenberg, Chicken Shop Date. Is that journalism? Is that just entertainment? You're interviewing some of the biggest names in the country, in the world.
And the big media organisations do showbiz journalism all the time.
Yeah, so is that still journalism? It's hard, and then you get into things around the MIT study of the lies travelling 6 times quicker than the truth, and they get more depth. So the real rigour, particularly given that the US companies are still protected from Section 230, which is the idea that the platform itself is not, you can't sue the platform for libel content, which means there is no impetus for them to take it down, which means that the AI slop and the crap keeps circulating. At the same time, people need real journalists. Ooh, horrible word. Accurate journalists more than ever.
If people are news avoiding, which all the data says, are we better off having half journalists, half influencers?
I think everyone. I'm quoted in this sort of 2014 Press Gazette piece. Everyone will become a social journalist. Everyone will become an influencer. It hasn't aged that well. But there's you have to understand, if your story doesn't reach anyone, there's no point in telling the story. The New York Times did a white paper bit of research on it about all of this high and mighty journalism they think really, really matters and is really important. If no one reads it, it doesn't matter. If a story falls in a forest, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. So you have to use the techniques of the influencer and the method of storytelling and vertical video and all of these front-loading and promise, deliver metrics that the influencers have got nailed to tell your story. It doesn't mean your story gets watered down, but it does mean your story is influencer content.
Scott, are you a journalist or an influencer? You post a lot on social media.
Yeah, I would say I'm more of a journalist because...
Give me a percentage score. Journalist, influencer.
I would say probably 100, because I don't accept gifts in terms of anything to do with TV, because I don't want my people to read my reviews thinking that because I've got free Sky, I'm loving the Sky program. So I've always been quite kind of rigorous in regards to that, and I think it's all about trust to a certain extent. But I agree in terms of it's getting more blurry, because I think what I've just seen, just as being a critic, is that TV reviews maybe 10 years ago you would see at an event 30 journalists being at a preview for a new TV show. Now it's probably 7 or 8, one person representing each media title in the country, and that is just because of how newspapers are. But at the same time, you've had a rise of influencers, maybe 2 or 3 people just started off with 10 years ago, and I'd say now it's on an equal level playing field as the journalist. Maybe sometimes more influencers in the room than journalists to a screening. But at the same time,
their reach is probably as large as some of those titles.
I think in some ways it can be. You're sort of wondering what difference it will give, because of course having an influencer there at a preview, they will always say it's going to be great. They wouldn't say, if they've been either paid or a guest of a large media company, that they would say anything negative. But at the same time, I have been impressed by some influencers. I think one is called Stepping Through Film, who has built 750,000 followers, and all he does is he takes photographs and revisits locations that have been places in TV shows, and basically recreates them using photographs. But then he gets access to interview the stars from that TV show, perhaps at a junket, and he asks them all the right questions, just as a journalist would, and he's got reach of 750,000. So, sometimes I think both can exist at the same time. I just think that transparency is a thing. I think the thing that really annoys me about influencing is when they're not transparent with people, when they're not being paid by people. Even though they're supposed to have a paid promotional thing on their videos, hardly any do, and that there's some money there.
You said there about kind of trust, and I think, do people trust you more because you're an authentic person on social media? Like, does it build the connection that then actually gets you the work because they believe all the things, they believe the things you write because they have that parasocial relationship with you because of your social media posting?
Oh, I find that it's very hard, I think, to evaluate as a third person, because I love TV, and I just go on and just word vomit and do what I want and say, and then I sort of think, when somebody says something to me that they've read something, I go, oh God, what did you read? What did I say? So yeah, I don't really have an answer to that.
I do have an answer. Yes. Trust is the currency.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily, because we're in that weird phase where critical thinking and the idea of someone, you still watch a video of somebody on TikTok and it has to be true. There are some rabbits.
Oh, is that true, or like a personal truth?
Well, people still think of it as true. Yeah. You wouldn't have said it if it wasn't true. People have that inbuilt trust of seeing someone. Are those rabbits really going on that trampoline? Of course they are. I see no reason to doubt that at all. And we're still built with that willingness to believe. And so in that trust doesn't necessarily now come from accuracy. And that is a big problem, because journalists build their credentials on being accurate all the time. But now it's built on trust, and it's built on transparency, and it's built on honesty. So I think there's a lot of grey areas, as Scott, you were saying, like that you are regularly a little bit grey area about whether or not you really are getting paid to be there. Yeah. We're on this lovely holiday. Isn't this surprising? But it's that relationship with the audience and the ability that they can trust you, that you are either accurate or being honest and being transparent about what you're doing, and that's a key balance is changing. Is it
vibes-based trust?
No, no, it's exposure-based trust.
It's funny, like I don't regard myself as a journalist, though I do think I occasionally do acts of journalism, not inadvertently. Like, there are points where we cover something, or I do an interview, or I get something out of somebody. I'm a podcaster, so I'm probably more in the influencer bucket, with a very small audience. Does it matter? Does it matter?
I think journalism is a trade, and journalism is a state of mind. So it is that right to reply. It is that accuracy. It is that sense check. It's a thing that you can teach, but it's almost like it's a tick list of things that you would have to go through for a story, irrespective of format, whether it be TikTok.
Do I need a diploma to be a journalist?
No.
Okay.
There are still newspapers that still require NTAs.
Yeah.
And in every newsroom that I've gone into that had that, I have removed it with as quickly as physically possible, because you can learn those skills without needing a certificate to do it. But those skills, also you make it elitist, and you remove a lot of the participation from different levels and underrepresented communities if you have those, because it's a very expensive qualification. But you teach people on the job, and those fundamentals are immovable and intractable and necessary to be a journalist. And you can use those in influencer context, but you don't need to be a journalist to have those things.
Well, speaking of elite journalism, Scott, at the NTAs yesterday, give us the headlines. Who won the things that you touched a bit about it on the intro, but who were the sort of surprises there?
I mean, I think Gary Lineker getting Best Presenter was certainly a surprise. I mean,
the Anton Deck Award.
The Anton Deck Award, they've had it 23 consecutive years. I think it's become like a long-running joke of how long could we make them win it, even though, of course, they are great presenters. And I think the two factors that always influence how people vote are always down to whether the show is the most popular show. So no surprise that Call the Midwife won in that category, because of course that show gets 6, 7, 8 million a week. Or it's fandoms or people who really feel motivated to vote for a show online. And I sort of feel that, yes, Gary, of course, has had some appeal, but in regards to his outspoken views, I think it must have been people motivated on the internet to go and vote for Gary in that particular case. And I think that the surprise in regards to, I think, Orford documentary, Molly May sort of winning for that one was quite a surprise, just because the other contenders were so strong in regards to very noble causes too. But overall, uneventful, really. I think if you think that award speeches sometimes go on for too long, the longest I ever heard was from Nick Park, the creator of Wallace and Gromit, who told me that they did a claymation animation of Wallace and Gromit accepting their special recognition award at the NTAs. And to make that short 2-minute sequence, maybe a minute sequence, it took them a month.
Yeah.
So that's a long speech to go and do.
Very long speech. Where do you think NTAs sit within the sort of pantheon of awards?
Well, I think there's only really, there are industry awards, so, I don't want to overlook those. But in terms of them being public facing, there's only really two. There's the BAFTA TV Awards and there's the NTAs. The BAFTA TV Awards, bar one category, is judged entirely by juries, whilst the NTAs are judged entirely by the public. And I think both of them have got positives and both of them have got negatives. I think for the NTAs, the positive is that it is a real litmus about what people are really thinking and caring and watching, and I think it does reach out to all parts of the country. But the negative side is that it just becomes a popularity contest, most popular rather than being kind of the quote-unquote best. Whilst the BAFTA TV Awards, I think, are the ones that the industry really really admires, and I think everyone in the industry who makes TV shows would love to have a BAFTA. But I think there is, just because of the natural structure that the BAFTA TV Awards work in terms of the juries, there is something, I think, difficult by the fact that they award the previous calendar year the following May. So Adolescents, for example, which won last night in 2 categories, they are eligible and could win in May 2026. And I think, there's sometimes such a long lag time between when a show like Mr. Bates versus The Post Office, I think, did well at this year's BAFTAs. Such a long lag time that TV is supposed to be reactive. It's supposed to be water cooler. It's supposed to be what people are talking about last night. So I don't think either ceremony has got it perfect really at the moment.
Okay, just enough time for the all-new Audio Network Media Quiz. Well, okay, it's the same, but we now have a jingle. Let's see how much attention our guests have been paying to the media news this week. And the quiz is called Name That Intellectual Property. Incredibly, there are still new shows, stations and formats being created, and all in need of a decent name to launch the new brand. I'll give you the property, you give me the name chosen for 1 point, or something I deem better for 2 points.
This is very complicated. Can we go back to the old quiz, please, actually?
And incredibly, Alex Audio Network has taken this rather complex brief from producer Matt, and she's come up with an entire suite of music to score today's game. So it's a best of 3.
Wow.
Buzz in with your names when you want to answer. So Alex, you will say
Alex.
And Scott, you will say
Scott.
Let's play Name That Intellectual Property. Okay, number 1. Gavin and Stacey, co-creators James Corden and Ruth Jones, have landed at Apple TV as a brother and sister reunited after years apart. What's it called?
What, the show?
Yeah.
I don't actually know what the show's called. I think it's just an untitled project.
Alex.
The Choir.
It's called The Choir, so 1 point for you there. But let's
hear... It should be called Cordon Bleu.
Cordon Bleu, I like it. He's challenging for 2 points there, Scott. Have you got a better name for The Choir?
Not really, but I did find it interesting that Ruth Jones was asked at the NTAs about this last night, because, of course, her son really went with it on the front page, and she said... firstly, she pretended not to hear the question, saying, what was that? But then followed it up with, nothing is announced, nothing is signed. So, okay. But then again, she said that with James
They
Corden,
lied about the special.
Yeah, well, with the special, well, then, of course, that was done by deadline, broken, I think, by Jesse and Max, and then 4 months later, ended up being announced. So the same could happen, really.
Okay, 2 points to Alex. Let's go for round 2 of Name That Intellectual Property. Scottish broadcaster STV has announced the name of its new radio station. What is it?
Scott.
Scott.
Is it just called STV Radio?
It is called STV Radio. A point for that. Unless either of you can do better. Scott, have you got a better name for a Scottish radio station?
Scottish?
Just Scottish.
Well, just SR, surely.
SR?
Yeah.
Just Scottish Radio?
Yeah.
Neither of those are worth 2 points.
Can't call it
Why are
TV
they
radio.
doing it? Why are they doing it, Matt? What's the logic behind it?
It's a good question. So, STV have been investing in lots of TV production companies. They haven't had a great time financially. They're a PLC, and they've sort of been kind of stuck a bit. I think their idea of the radio station was to expand what they do. They talk to advertisers all the time, putting that across more media, not a terrible idea. They've hired some people who've got quite good Scottish radio experience, particularly from the Bauer side, Graham Bryce and co. But I think they're going with a radio station for 30 to 55-year-olds. That is, a big mainstream market that's well catered for. They're saying it will be obviously very local. A lot of the English-owned media, whilst there's Scottish output, there's also content from around the country. So that's kind of what they're aiming for. But I think they'll find it. It's going to be hard work to do well. Right. Question number 3. The New York Times has added a new subscription tier. What's it called?
Alex. I can make one up.
No, well, if it's good, you get some points.
The Granny Guilt tier.
It's good. It's good. It's not what I've got on my card.
Oh.
Scott, do you know what the new MIT subscription's
but
called?
I think was it they removed one of the quizzes from free, so you can't do it. And a lot of people are up in arms about it. But that's not a tier, is it?
No, that's just general social media anger. It's called the family subscription. They're kind of going down a
Granny Guilt.
Spotify model. Why Granny Guilt?
Because I was speaking to a sort of subscriptions expert about this, and it's very much the case of you might be able to cancel your own subscription, but the second if your grandma is doing Wordle every day, can you do that to your grandma?
So it's an anti-churn method.
Well, and grandma churn.
Yes. Well, they do churn themselves.
That was a better. That was a better pun. That was a better pun than you gave that credit for. That's rude.
Scott, are you on other people's Spotify subscriptions or Netflix subscriptions, or are they on yours?
I have been on a free subscription to a place I used to work for a short time that never deleted it, and I was on for them for 15 years, and they only just found out. That was gutting. So that's recently ended. And whether I'm still using one of my ex's Amazon Prime Video accounts, it's very much not going to answer that.
For the
one.
audience to decide. Audience to decide.
Yeah.
Well, I think that just makes Alex our winner. Congratulations. As a special prize, you get to investigate all of Scott's subscriptions and see what he should or shouldn't be paying for.
Don't do that.
No one should have access to the paper subscriptions.
My thanks to Alex and Scott, and thanks again to Alex at Audio Network as well for picking today's music. Remember, they can do that job for your production as well. Just head to audionetwork.com or click the link in the show notes. Right, before we go, Scott, how can people keep up with what you've been doing?
Just at ScottyGB, really, across everywhere. That's basically it.
You can read Scott's behind the scenes at the NTAs article on Yahoo to give some insight into the not very glamorous world of the NTAs. And Alex, how can people find your new gaff?
Right, so everythingpopular.substack.com. So if you search for Everything Popular is Wrong, there will be stuff there starting from Sunday. It's going out weekly, and that will be growing and growing. Or Alex Huds, ALEXHUDS, across all of the major platforms on the social medias.
And what sort of things is the new place covering?
That I can't talk about yet. So everything popular is wrong is a really simple format. It is everything popular is wrong.
Okay.
Come up with anything that disproves that theory. The only one so far is Taylor Swift. We haven't been able to prove that yet. But everything else that's popular is wrong.
Okay. Find it on the Substack. And thank you for joining us as well. My name is Matt Deegan. The producer was Matt Hill. It was a Rethink audio production with video support from Podcast Discovery. Remember, head to themediaclub.com to sign up to our Substack and get access to the brand new briefed roundup of all the media podcasts. And I'll see you next week.